While residents of East Palestine, Ohio were told repeatedly that their air and water quality was completely fine after a train derailed in their town and essentially released toxic chemicals into their environment, turns out that some of the individuals doing the testing actually fell ill, and it wasn't widely reported that they had fallen ill. So this was an exclusive report by CNN. One of the examples of good reporting from CNN. And before we get to who got sick, why they got sick, and what the excuse is in terms of why the public didn't know about it, let's just do a quick refresher and give you context into what happened during this train derailment. So 11 cars carrying more than 1 million pounds of hazardous chemicals ended up derailing in East Palestine, a small town in Ohio. Now, the chemicals spilled into the soil and air and into 2 small creeks that run through the town. A car carrying flammable vinyl chloride became unstable, sparking fears of a massive explosion. So they decided to do what was referred to as a controlled burn, although there are some conflicting reports as to whether they needed to do a controlled burn. There could have been safer ways of doing this. Nearby residents were evacuated while small holes were punched in the rail cars so vinyl chloride could be channeled into a trench where it was burned. A black mushroom cloud rose over the town and left ash and soot on cars and buildings for miles around. Afterwards, the CDC's Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry sent 15 people to the area to conduct an assessment of chemical exposures. And one of the things that the investigators do is they go to households near the derailment site to ask them if they're experiencing any symptoms related to exposure to these toxic chemicals. And I'll give you the results of their study in just a moment. But before we do, the investigators, some of them got real sick. Now remember, they sent 15 CDC employees to do this investigation. 7 US government investigators briefly fell ill in early March while studying the possible health impacts of a toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed to CNN. So Francesca, 7 out of the 15, nearly half of them got ill, and they suffered from symptoms like sore throat, headaches, coughing, nausea, basically the same symptoms that the East Palestine, Ohio residents were experiencing, but were told repeatedly, everything's gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine, everything is safe.
Absolutely. I mean, if only this were in Cuba, and then we could call it, the East Palestine syndrome, and do 60 Minutes, which we're going to talk about, reports all about the syndrome that must be related to Fidel or something. No, and I'm making that joke because obviously, this is why TYT and your coverage is so important, is because this is a story that a lot of mainstream news outlets have left, like a toy that they're done playing with. It's done, it's over. We're not gonna follow up, and because it's not follow, it's corporate malfeasance. It fingers both the Biden administration and Republicans. We don't wanna touch it. No, this is exactly why we have to talk about this. And of course there were people who are gonna get sick, and of course the residents are gonna be like, see what happens? This is, mind you, after the head of the EPA goes and drinks the water performatively. I think there's like 2 or 3 moments where different officials are drinking the water, just a total slap in the face. And so, yeah, and I think the CDC workers, yes, it's a little bit delicious, sort of, hypocrisy and justice maybe, but they didn't want to necessarily be there cleaning up the mess of, essentially a massive, railroad barons malfeasance. Yeah, they didn't want to be the ones to be the guinea pigs, and yet here they are, as if they hadn't been through enough in these last, 3 years of the pandemic.
Yeah, and it's just so frustrating because it's important to have institutions, government institutions that you can rely on to tell you the truth, that you can, take their reporting, take their investigation, and figure out whether or not it's safe to go back to your home in East Palestine. And in this case, I mean, the argument was, well, we decided that the public didn't really need to know about the 7 CDC investigators who experienced these symptoms because when they were told to go home and rest, their symptoms were alleviated and they were able to get back to work and do their thing. No, but you don't get to make that decision. The local community there deserves to know about the reality of the situation. They deserve to know every moment of that investigation, what the outcome was, whether or not the CDC employees fell ill as they were doing their investigation, because they need to make decisions about how to move forward. Do they go back to their homes? Is it safe for their kids? But there's more to this that's pretty incredible. So again, all of the symptoms that they experienced were consistent with what the residents were experiencing. And by the way, apparently continue to experience, but they keep getting told that everything is safe, everything is fine. So early results of the Ohio ACE survey, so that's the survey that the CDC did, show that more than half of the 514 residents who have taken it so far have experienced symptoms after the derailment. So what are the top symptoms? Well, 74% of the residents said that they are experiencing headaches, 61% said anxiety, 53% say coughing, 53% say fatigue, 50% reported that they were experiencing pain, irritation, or burning of the skin, and another 50% say, or 50% of them also say that they experienced stuffy nose and sinus congestion. Now, the CDC spokesperson said in a statement to CNN, quote, symptoms resolved for most team members later the same afternoon, and everyone resumed work on survey data collection within 24 hours. Impacted team members have not reported ongoing health effects. So in their minds, everything's okay. I mean, they got better. They were able to go back to work within 24 hours. So that's the reason why we just didn't really feel the need to report this widely. And why are we finding out about this now? Because the investigators' symptoms improved soon after they left the area. The incident was not reported to the public, a CDC official said, noting that reports of illnesses experienced by CDC personnel on the job wouldn't ordinarily be disclosed. Why not? Why wouldn't they ordinarily be disclosed, especially if they're investigating something, a chemical release into the environment that could impact the local community's health? It absolutely should be ordinarily disclosed. And then not only did the CDC experience this, apparently there were workers for the Environmental Protection Agency who also reported similar symptoms. They got sick, but since their symptoms got better within 24 hours, apparently they went back to work and didn't feel the need to widely report this or widely report the illnesses to both the press or the local community. Any final thoughts, Francesca?
No, the biggest thing is they get to go home, right? They get to leave East Palestine. The residents do not have that option. And all of this is to save money for everyone to keep passing the buck back and forth between, corporate greed and government. And when you hollow out places like the CDC or the EPA or FEMA and you gouge them, they're not equipped. And so I understand being like, we should put these residents up in hotels, which is what they should do for months and months and months until they know it is safe to move back. But again, we don't really have that infrastructure. We don't have that infrastructure when it comes to climate change. We don't have that infrastructure when it comes to corporations who are gonna do late stage capitalism all over us and make us clean up their messes time and time again. Look, you can't have it both ways. If you want the free market to be able to use us as their little garbage bin, then you better help and assist people. So when these things inevitably do go wrong, people aren't stranded.
Absolutely, the local community absolutely deserves to be paid damages. They deserve to be put up in hotels where they and their children are safe from any of the environmental impact here. But more importantly, just taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture, I just don't really want to hear much from the Biden administration about what the Trump administration was able to do unilaterally in rolling back regulations pertaining to these rail companies. The Biden administration can undo what the Trump administration did. They can do the same thing unilaterally, but have chosen not to. So why haven't they re-implemented the very regulations pertaining to the braking systems that the Trump administration had repealed from the Obama administration? I would like some answers on that. So while it is absolutely true that the Trump administration deregulated these trains and made them less safe, the Biden administration could have reversed what the Trump administration did, and they have chosen not to, at least so far. And that is a big problem in my eyes. And if you're gonna criticize the previous administration, you have to take ownership for your failures as well. Buttigieg has not done enough in response to this, and we keep hearing more and more stories about these train derailments. They will continue happening as long as these rail companies know that they can operate the way that they've been operating with impunity.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.